Hey folks, welcome back for another build video. This time around we're looking at the Pestilence Vial, the ongoing directive gear set, and the backbone with the perfectly unstoppable force talent. So right off the top, let's get two things out of the way. First, we have done a Pestilence build before, so click on the link in the video description or the card up top if you want to check that out. But we're revisiting the Pestilence today because it is just such a great light machine gun, and on top of that, the Plague of the Outcasts talent hinges on your total weapon damage. And with the new perfectly unstoppable force talent on the backbone backpack, killing an enemy increases total weapon damage by 7%, which is a 2% increase over the normal version of unstoppable force. So while this isn't going to be an all-out weapon damage build to try and get those Plague of the Outcast ticks as high as absolutely possible, I do think this chest piece is a great way to increase the total damage that those ticks are doing, which along with Vial and the ongoing directive gear set, you'll be applying quite a few damage over time, status effects, and debuffs to help take down your enemies. So let's get into this one. Right off the top, we've gone with the Gunner specialization because this is primarily an LMG based build, primarily for the Incessant talent, which grants 10% armor on kill, the Supply Line talent, which generates 10% of your total ammo capacity every 60 seconds, and the Emplacement talent, which grants 10% weapon handling while not moving, and of course you need to be motionless for 1 second. But given how this build typically operates, that isn't too difficult to maintain throughout the length of an encounter. Obviously you could go another route here if you would like, but as with any LMG focused build, the Gunner just makes a whole lot of sense as the specialization choice. For our primary weapon, we have the aforementioned Pestilence, with that all-important Plague of the Outcasts talent. Hits apply a debuff dealing 100% weapon damage over 10 seconds, and this stacks up to 50 times. Whenever an enemy dies with this debuff, all stacks are transferred to a nearby enemy within 25 meters. So two main notes to make here. One is that this is a debuff, not a status effect. So while this doesn't directly proc the Vial Mask's Toxic Delivery talent, it does combine really well with it because it adds another damage over time source to this build, and again, directly benefits from the perfectly unstoppable force talent that we have on the backpack there. For our secondary weapon, I've gone with Glory Days, which sports the perfectly nearsighted talent. You receive 100% stability at the cost of minus 35% optimal range. You could obviously go with a number of different secondary weapons here. I've chosen this one because your LMG is going to be your primary weapon shooting at long range. So your secondary weapon is really more of a close quarters weapon, and as you'll see later, because of the headshot damage that we've stacked on this build, we want to be able to consistently hit headshots on onrushing enemies. So since we're not too concerned about the optimal range of our secondary weapon, perfectly nearsighted is a perfect talent to support the Pestilence LMG. And for our sidearm, I'm going with the TDI card custom here for that +1 skill tier that it provides, buffing both of our skills when we need them. But honestly, as with the secondary weapon, you're not going to be reaching into this bag all that often, so if you have another sidearm that you would personally prefer, feel free to go with it here. The main weapon you're going to be using for the majority of the time is the Pestilence. For our mask, we have the aforementioned Vial, which comes with the Toxic Delivery talent. Status effects also apply a damage over time debuff for 10 seconds. Total damage dealt is equal to 50% of your concussion grenade damage and increased by your status effect attributes. So as you can see later, we have stacked as many status effect attributes as we possibly can to get the effect of this talent up. And on top of that, along with the status effect and hazard protection attributes that this piece is rolled with, and obviously cannot be changed because it is an exotic, we have slapped 10% headshot damage in that mod slot. And while that may surprise some people, honestly with the limited mods that we're working with here, there aren't too many options that directly benefit a status effects build that isn't based around your skills. So to help increase our damage, even though it doesn't directly increase any of the status effects or the Plague of the Outcast damage ticks, headshot damage is really nice, as I spoke about before with the secondary weapon there, for when enemies are rushing at you. You could swap to your secondary weapon, and provided that you can consistently hit headshots, the mods on this build are going to help you take them down for the times when you can't rely on all of the status effects and debuffs that you're applying to take enemies down passively. For our backpack, we have the Backbone, which is from the Langmo brand set, plus 20% explosives resistance. Isn't doing too much for us other than this is an LMG build, so you're going to try and hunker down. Some explosive resistance doesn't hurt, but ultimately what we're going for here is the perfectly unstoppable force talent, which of course, as we've already read out, increases your total weapon damage with each enemy that you kill. And as you'll see later in the video, even if it's a passive kill because of the status effect or Play the Outcast debuff, it does increase your total stacks, so you'll be up to 5 stacks in no time, giving you an extra 35% weapon damage, which in turn increases the Plague of the Outcast debuff damage. On top of that, we've gone with headshot damage, status effects, and headshot damage again in the mod slot for all the reasons we just talked about on the Vile Mask. For our chest piece, we have our first piece of ongoing directive. No direct benefits right now, but we do have a secondary attribute of status effects and then a headshot damage mod there again. And then for our gloves, holster, and knee pads, we have identical pieces here. The 2, 3, and 4 piece bonuses being unlocked, along with a core attribute of weapon damage and a secondary attribute of status effects, which again helps increase the effectiveness of the toxic delivery talent. On top of that, with this gear set, we get plus 15% status effects at 2 pieces, plus 30% reload speed at 3 pieces, which pairs really well with an LMG build, given that reload speed is one of the major detracting factors to an LMG like the Pestilence. And then of course at 4 pieces we get rules of engagement. Shooting a status affected enemy will apply a mark, and killing a marked enemy grants a full clip of hollow point ammo for your active weapon. And if you're in a party, half of the clip of the agent's active weapon will be provided to the rest of the party. Marks last for 10 seconds, and hollow point ammo amplifies weapon damage by 20% and applies bleed on hit. And if I can go back to the chest piece real quick, you actually get a total damage amplification of 35%. Because of course the talent on the ongoing directive chest piece is Parabellum rounds, which increases that benefit from 20 to 35%. Getting into our skills now, we've gone with the Stinger Hive and the Jammer Pulse. One quick note, because we do have the Gunner specialization, you could also go with the Banshee Pulse here, as either the Jammer Pulse's Disrupt or the Banshee Pulse's Disorient will both proc the Toxic Delivery talent on the Vile Mask. Personally, I've gone with the Jammer Pulse to help with the Black Tusk enemies, which is one area where this build does struggle a little bit, and also because of the larger overall area of effectiveness of the Jammer Pulse. But you could certainly go with the Banshee Pulse. It is much better for dealing with onrushing enemies, which means you wouldn't have to rely on your secondary weapon as much to deal with your rushers. But ultimately, I think either option is a great choice to go with. And then coming back to our first skill here, we've gone with the Stinger Hive because it's a great pairing with any build where you're going to be staying in one place. You can set your Stinger Hive down and allow it to deal with enemies that get too close. On top of that, it's just another way you can apply a status effect to an enemy, which can help get rules of engagement kickstarted, because obviously you do need to apply a status effect to at least one enemy and kill them before you can get your full mag of hollow point ammo. And then from that point on, you shouldn't have any trouble maintaining it, given that with this build, you're going to get 100 hollow point rounds to then apply to the whole field of enemies. And then anytime any one of those enemies goes down, you'll get a refresh of that 100 rounds of hollow point ammo. One last note here, at the time of recording, and more generally, the Langmo brand set is supposed to drop with an armor core as its core attribute. But as you can see there right now, it is dropping with a skill tier for some reason. Longtime players will know this is not an uncommon issue. It is new, obviously, to Langmo, but it has happened before on Empress International. I would expect that at some point the developers are going to get this fixed and it will start dropping again with an armor core. But I did just want to make that note so that you're not expecting to always get a skill tier with the backbone. So there we go, another build that makes use of the lovely Pestilence exotic light machine gun. Put this one together, take it for a spin, let us know what you think of it in the comments below. As always, please like and subscribe so you can help us get this video out to as many people as possible and continue to help the channel grow. And most importantly, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
combatants detected. Friendly combatants detected. Friendly combatants nearby.
We're gonna take them by surprise.